The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by the Op, also known as USAopoly.
The Dice Tower, episode 703, M&M Insider.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's show, we've got another big mishmash of games to talk about and a drafting game pie to serve up. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
And welcome back, everybody. It's great to be here with you. Now, in choosing today's episode title and subsequent poll, I was like, Mandi, are you okay if we do M&M flavors? And what did you say back to me, Mandi?
I was like, are there several flavors of M&Ms? Really? That's a thing?
I was like, yeah, there is. There's plain M&Ms, peanut M&Ms, almond M&Ms, peanut butter, hazelnut cream, dark chocolate, caramel, crispy, pretzel. I could go on.
I feel like I'm in a Forrest Gump movie, but it's not about shrimp. It's about M&Ms.
Seriously. But is it an American thing?
I mean, fellow Canadians, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear to you, the only flavors that I've at least seen or tried are, the regular chocolate ones, the peanut ones, the almond ones, the caramel ones, and maybe the peanut butter. Anything outside of that, I have just not seen or tried. But fellow Canadians, please tell me if I'm wrong. So I didn't realize there were like 20 other flavors that M&M's had.
Seriously. Well, we'll toss the poll up into the Dice Tower's Board Game Geek Guild so you can vote, and I will make sure to have some kind of listing for we don't have M&Ms. Apologies to folks that don't have the same level of exposure to M&M varietals as perhaps we do in America. It'll be fun to see. You have Smarties, Mandi. I like Smarties,
Smarties
too.
come in one flavor, candy chocolate, candy coated outside and chocolate. They may be different colors, but they all taste the same.
Meanwhile, in the U.S., Smarties are a hard sugar tablet candy.
Which would be our equivalent, would be Rockets.
Yeah, oh my gosh, candy is so confusing. And I look forward to exploring it all. And last episode, we had the Beetlejuice episode. I don't know, Mandi, if anybody listened to the very, very end for the Easter egg we dropped in there, but I had a lot of fun putting it in there.
I know. So now if you haven't, you should go back and listen to it.
It's just a little thing. But we did our best Michael Keaton movies poll in Board Game Geek. Thanks to everybody who voted. And Mandi's shaking her fist. I don't know if she's happy or not. But number one, Batman at 16%.
Yes. Best Batman ever. Yes.
Oh, interesting. Then coming in second, Beetlejuice at 15.4%. And then, honestly, this kind of surprised me mostly because I haven't seen it.
Me neither.
Johnny Dangerously came in at 12%.
Wow.
Have you seen that?
I've not, so now I need to add it to the list. Interesting.
Exactly, and it was really fun. Like, some of the conversation from some of y'all was around quoting Johnny Dangerously and kind of talking it up. So now I've got a movie on my to-watch list.
Yeah, me too.
So thank you. And then Spider-Man Homecoming came in with almost 10%. And then a lot of other, he voiced the main character in the dubbed version of the animated movie Porco Rosso. And I really like that movie. So, Much Ado About Nothing didn't quite crack the top 5, but that's okay because he was still great in it. And it was really fun. He's been in a lot of movies. That was a big poll.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very exciting. But I have to say, a nice list. I was expecting maybe some other ones to make it there, but I quite enjoy what the top kind of few movies were there.
So thank you, everybody, for voting. We look forward to seeing your takes on M&Ms. And we're having a lot of fun. We continue to just have a lot of fun with this. So thank you. Now, Mandi, last episode when you talked about Mariposas.
Yeah.
I believe that we were talking about how the word butterfly, different languages is different words.
Yes.
So what did you hear from folks out there?
So I did get a couple responses because I had asked people, if you speak another language, what is butterfly in your language? And hey, if you missed the cutoff this time, feel free to send it to me. I love learning new words, so I can add it to my repertoire. So Jeremiah messaged me and said, butterfly in Filipino is paru-paro. Paru Paro. And I apologize. I think I'm saying that right, but if I'm not, please feel free to write me and give me the exact pronunciation. I did a little listen online. And Marilyn told me butterfly in Swedish. This one I'm going to need a bit here. Fjäril? And that's butterfly in Swedish. So,
Ooh,
and then
I like that one.
many butterflies are fjärilar. So I apologize if I said that wrong or with a potentially French or Spanish accent. But if I didn't say it right, you can let me know. So thank you for writing that in. More words that I can add. And when I speak to people who speak those languages, I like to, make people feel comfortable. So if I can learn a little bit, that's great. So thank you. Speaking of learning things, investigating things, well, I've investigated Kickstarter a little bit.
Oh no. Dun, dun, dun. Seriously, what is up with Kickstarter? It's bananas lately, and
right?
my wallet is screaming for relief.
It's on fire. Like, I try to stay off of it because as a Canadian, and I'm sure people from Australia and other places can attest to this, Kickstarter's really hard on our wallets because shipping is usually so expensive. The conversion, it's really tough. Well, there have been some projects that I can say are reasonably priced and I can afford. So Letters to Margaret, a crossword graphic novel was one. And I was like, well, this is a novel idea. See what I did there? And Suzanne's giving me a look and chose to ignore. So this one is, I think Mike Selinker is the person who has created this game. And it's literally a graphic novel, but there's crossword in it, so that kind of helps complete the story. So I thought that was rather interesting. I'm just getting the PDF version of it, and I can just print and play that at home. So I thought that would be something different and fun. Another one I'm looking at, and I channeled my inner Suzanne here, was it's called A Lot of Games Bundle Print and Play. And it is roll and write games. And there's a ton of them that you can just print and play. And again, another reasonable price for these. I think it ends up being like 20 Canadian or something like that. And
nice.
So I thought, hey, let's give it a whirl. These look kind of fun. The next one that I looked at is one I thought of Suzanne, actually, because I have Factory Fun. But you had taught me Factory Funner, and I was like, I want this game, and I couldn't get it. Well, hello, everybody. It is on Kickstarter. So they have Factory Funner, Bear Raid, and Ghosts of Christmas. Do you think I could have just gotten away with just getting Factory Funner? Oh, no. I continued reading. I'm like, what? A trick-taking game?
Yeah.
Check. So
yeah.
Got all three in that little bundle there. So if you're looking for Factory Funner, go check that out. And finally, Coyote and Crow, the role-playing game. And this was really exciting to me. So I think it ends pretty soon. I just got the print version of this one, and I'm really trying to get into playing more RPGs. And I don't know, I've played them a long time ago, but it's just been so busy I haven't had time. And I don't know if you feel the same way, Suzanne, but...
Oh, absolutely. Time is always difficult, yeah.
Absolutely, and I don't know if this is one that you were looking at as well, but I really thought the theme on this one was just something so different. And I thought that it would be a nice way to kind of learn about a different culture. So in this specific one, it is focusing on Indigenous First Nations people and, in a different kind of, I don't know if it's like not space. I'm trying to remember.
Well, it's future, but it's
you.
Not post-apocalyptic. It takes place in the future where, the world that we know today has collapsed, but it's been rebuilt.
Yes.
Right? And it's not this dire thing. It's about how life continues and grows and what you can do, like post-capitalism and all that kind of thing. And I love what this project has done because when we talk about being respectful and appreciative of cultures, here comes Coyote Crow, where from soup to nuts, it is created and contributed within by First Nations and Native people from the North American continent. And it's just gorgeous, and I'm very excited for this one too.
Yeah, me too. So that's one if you haven't checked it out and you're into RPGs, or hey, maybe you're new to RPGs and want to try something a little different, that's one you can check out. So I'm going to stop there because
Mandy,
there are a
your
few
wallet.
I know.
Woman.
I didn't even get into the dice that light up, but that's for another time.
You troublemaker. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we take a break and we'll talk about games that we already have so that you're not spending more money on them right now, Mandy, right?
Good idea.
We'll try to make you all spend some money on games.
So, what have you been playing lately?
All right, let me put away the jelly bellies there. Yep, sorry.
That's a huge bag of candy, Mandy.
Well,
oh my gosh.
technically, I gave up sweets for Lent, and I just want to smell the candy.
You're just huffing the bag of Jelly Bellies. Is that what you're telling me?
That is exactly what I'm doing because Lent isn't over for like another, oh goodness, what is it, a week and a half? Something like that. So, okay, I'm good. Now I can start. Now we can talk about games played. I'm refreshed. Here we go. So, the first game I played, and look, not solo. I started to do a solo, and then a friend of mine, Amanda, offered to play this with me on a stream. So, Oaxaca Crafts of a Culture. And I've had this on my shelf for a while. And again, like many games, but I was really happy to get this played. So this is designed by Sarah Reed and Will Reed. Art is by Derek Bacon, Ben Haskett, and Mark Major. Published by Thing 12 Games and Undyne Studios. It's 1 to 4 players, plays in about 20 to 40 minutes, and price, it's about 45 Canadian, 35 US, so not unreasonable. And it's a kind of pool building dice rolling game. So in a nice compact box. So in this particular game, they state you are a family of skilled Oaxacan handicrafts people, and you're trying to sell your artisan wares to tourists that are coming through the city. And I believe this is specifically relating to Mexican culture in this particular game. So it's very excited to see some of the colors and bright things in this game. So in the game, it's pretty straightforward, actually. I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, there are a lot of cards here. There's a lot of things, but it's small. But in the end, it's actually really straightforward. So everybody gets a board, and on your board, which I really enjoyed here, they lay out all the steps of the game. Like, it's on the board. I'm like, oh, chef's kiss. Beautiful. It's very clear. Then they have some space for you to put your dice, because you're going to roll some dice. Plop those up on the left-hand corner, so those are like your actions. So it's the daytime. Those are the actions you're going to be able to take by using your dice. And then when you're done, you kind of transfer them over to the right side of your board to show that you've used them. Really straightforward. And on a turn, you can do a couple of things. You can take cards from the kind of market. So they have several stacks of cards representing different things like jewelry and things like that. And based on the deck you pick, it'll be like a different type of scoring. So some of them might be undercutting a competitor. Now the cards will say, add more cubes to someone's card. And that's important because when you take a card, it tells you how many cubes you add to that card. So you can take another action on a separate turn to, I think it's crafting them. So it removes cubes off of cards, but you do that based on the die that you select. So you want to try and get cards that match the dice you have, because for every card you have of that symbol on the die you choose, you get to take off a cube. And taking off cubes are important because it allows you to use the action that are on those cards. And some are passive, so they just happen all the time. Sometimes it's once on a turn, and then you turn the card once you've used it. And then they reset for the next round. So it goes back and forth like that between players until you're done. And I think it's you have cards that kind of monitor the round, because you have cards at a main display that people can also use. Mm-hmm. And I think is it 4 rounds? 1, 2, 3, I think. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to count it out. It's 3 or 4 rounds. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's fairly short. Like a game takes maybe 30, 25 minutes to play. And this was a 2-player game that I had played. So it's pretty quick. And then at the end of that round, you count up all of the cards that you have, and the points are listed on there. If you have any additional scoring from cards that you have, it'll tell you. And then whoever has the most points wins. So it's really easy. So when I say easy, it's a light game. Easy to understand the rules. Timing is important in this game, which I was really bad. So I was beaten. The person doubled my score. It was really bad. So thanks, Amanda, for that. So timing of cards, picking the right amount of cards, making sure that the dice you have, you're using them effectively, because you can get like wild dice. But sometimes using that on its own only allows you to take off 1 cube off of a card. So you're not really using your turn effectively. So timing on those is really good. So you have to make sure that you do that properly. So I enjoyed it for what it was. Very light, straightforward game. I liked the theme. I like the colors. It's very like vibrant. And the gameplay itself to me was really fun. Now, if you're looking for something that's going to like burn your brain, oh my goodness, this is not the game for you. This is meant to be just something that's a little bit light, has a little bit of, thinking with that whole timing I was talking about. But that's where it stops. So for me, this is a nice game. This is a game actually that I could play with, if we were in the office, I could play with the colleagues. I think my mom would even play this one actually, because it's pretty straightforward. I probably shouldn't say it like that. Even my mom would play this one. Not that she doesn't
That's
play.
Okay. I mean, if your mom has a zone of games that she enjoys, and it tends to be the more streamlined, straightforward 60-minute games, there's nothing wrong with that. That's great.
And that's more or less what it is. Games that have a lot of upkeep, I do the upkeep in those games. My mother will play it, but then I'm the one who has to do all the calculating and the moving and the things. So if it's a game that's really straightforward that she can manage, then that's perfect for her. So, and I feel that kind of sits in that realm. So I don't really have much else to say. It's not an overly complex game. I enjoyed it for what it was. You can play it solo. So those who like playing it solo, I think that you'll enjoy that. And it's not a hard solo from what I was reading. I think you have another set of dice that you're kind of working with, but that's really it.
So I have played it solo, and it plays very well solo. So yeah, I think that's I concur. It's just fine solo. It plays well solo.
Yeah. So I actually don't have anything negative to say. Suzanne may have something else to say about the game. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So
I think you assessed it great. It's a game I enjoy a lot, and I think they did a great job with it. And it is beautiful. I like. The art feels uncommon. That treatment of art and color in games is uncommon, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So Oaxaca Crafts of a Culture. Give it a whirl.
First up for me is a 2-player game called The Field of Cloth of Gold. Now, this is a game published by Hollandspiel, which is a publisher that may not be something that Dice Tower talks about a ton. Hollandspiel is known for publishing typically slightly heavier, more complex games that fall into the war game or heavier train game zone. But it is a publisher that I really appreciate and value, because they focus in historical games and heavier games, but they care so deeply about creating really rich gameplay experiences. And I think that they are one of the best in terms of presenting historical games in context true to the history, but with respect and regard for the context in which those games are being presented. So if I'm going to trust a publisher to tackle a complex historical topic that has echoes into today, Hollandspiel is one of those publishers.
Okay.
All of that said, The Field of Cloth of Gold is not one of those heavy, heavy historical games, but it is a historical game. Okay. And this one is designed by Annabelle Holland, and it's going to sell for $30, and you can order it direct from their website. As mentioned, this is a 2-player game. Rules-wise, it's very, very light. You're going to get a little board with some action spots and a score track, and the score track has a little bit of gameplay impact, and then a bunch of tokens that you're going to be working to collect. There are 4 different colors of tokens: red, blue, white, gold, and each of these tokens score differently based on their color. So maybe you're trying to get sets or diversity, things like that, and we'll talk about that. Anyway, there's 7 little actions up top, and you get 2 workers, essentially, per player. And you're just going to take turns, boop, 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 moving your markers and taking one of the actions. Now, when you take one of those actions, the actions may let you say, okay, take this token and then score all of your blue tokens, or take this action and play your white tokens down to your tableau. Because you have a hand of tokens and then you have a tableau in front of you, or a little face-up collection of tokens in front of you. You keep on going until you hit a certain score track amount, until you run out of tokens and that kind of thing. It's simple enough there. The big thing in this game is that connected to each of those action spots is a spot where a token goes. So when you set up the game, you fill those spots with tokens, and then when you take that action, the token that is there is given as a gift to your opponent.
Oh, is this a real gift?
Well, it is, because tokens are good.
Okay.
And when you've got this thing and you're like, oh, I really want to play my blue tokens right now, but there's a gold token there, and I know if I'm going to take this action, I'm going to have to give that gold token to my opponent, and I know that they really want that gold token. It creates a huge amount of tension. It makes the simplest of decisions and the simplest possible rule set so tough and agonizing. Oh my goodness. So as you're scoring little sets, and maybe you're discarding tokens or some of them stay out in front of you, you're going to advance on the score tracker. There's different rows to the score tracker, so as you hit different thresholds, you actually can strengthen some actions. It's I think a 2-page rulebook, maybe 3. It's very, very simple. And if you're familiar with Hollandspiel and you felt intimidated by them before, the Field of Cloth of Gold is not. This is a very approachable 2-player game. And it's just so good. It's so good. If you play 2-player games and you don't mind that interplayer tension, the Field of Cloth of Gold is a great one to check out. I will also point out that I don't know who exactly wrote the rulebook, but they chose to write it in a contextual voice for that era. So it's like, and thy dragon doth travel to the distant lands of the Red Banner. And at first I started reading it, I went, oh no,
Right.
oh no. But honestly, it worked just fine.
Really?
And it was funny and entertaining. I cannot believe they managed to pull it off, this short rule set in a contextual tone, and they actually made it work, and it was amusing, so extra kudos on that. 2-player game, The Field of Cloth of Gold. I definitely recommend you check it out.
That sounds very interesting. And the rulebook, the language that's written. And for me, I like to just get right to it. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
me
like
too.
any fluff or muss. And it's like, okay, do I now have to filter through the way it's written and learn the rules? No, but if you're saying that, now I'm kind of intrigued just based on that alone.
I honestly, like I said, when I started reading it, I kind of went, uh-oh. But after a couple paragraphs, I was like, all right, this is cruising for me. I'm down. I can make this work.
Very cool. I'm impressed. All right. Well, we're going from, I don't even know what type of voice I was going to try there, so I just won't. We're going to go into the next game that I played, not solo, might I add. I know I'm on a roll here, but not in person, virtually. Smash Up Marvel. Okay, and this is designed by Sean Fletcher and Paul Peterson. There is not an artist listed on BGG, but it's published by Alderac Entertainment Group, AEG, and The Op. It's for 2 to 4 players and plays in about 30 to 60 minutes, and it retails for about 34 Canadian and 26 US. So this one has some hand management, does have a little bit of take that, and variable player powers in the game. So for those who have not played Smash Up, it's I guess you could say shuffle building kind of game. I don't know. I think that's how they describe it.
Oh, interesting way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
okay.
think that's how they describe it. That's not my word. I think that's their word. But everybody kind of chooses a pack of cards or grouping of cards related to a specific group that they're playing, whether it be zombies or something like this. In this particular case, it's Marvel characters, so they have things like United, the United group, Spider-Verse. I think I played Hydra mixed with United or something like
Yeah.
that. Like I basically played enemies together in a pack, but you get to pick 2 and put them together, and all the groups have different abilities that they can do. So it's really important that you're reading the cards when you play them, because it can affect your cards, other cards, and you getting majority in a specific area. So there are 3 kind of big cards that are placed out, and on them they have 3 point values, and then there's like a little ability on that place. So if you decide to place cards there, cards specifically, then you're able to carry out that action on the card, and then the card you placed, and if you win majority, because each card has a specific number assigned to it. So let's say one space is you need to get up to 21. Right? Or the space needs to be up to 21, whether it's a mixture of your cards and the opponent's cards. Whoever has the most there will gain the first amount of points, and whoever's the second most will gain the second amount of points that are listed on that card. And you keep playing the game like this on the different locations until someone reaches 15 points, I believe it is. And in this one in particular, it is 15 points. So in this one, as I was saying, this is specifically a Marvel one. They do have other packs. I think I have the big box, which has like zombies. And do you know some of the characters? I can't think offhand, but...
Oh, it's out of control. They have the princesses, the
That's it.
kittens, cowboys, zombies. They have so many.
Right. So, no, it's really good. And the game that I played, and I'm calling you out here, David, I was like, yes, I feel a win coming on. Whew, so excited. Until David hit me with some of that Spider-Verse stuff, and literally just bam, bam, bam. Whole bunch of cards, which won in the game by like 2 points. I was like, that's so mean. Waited to play those cards. But he had a deck where it was based on just given that, take that, but I had to play specific cards in order for him to do that. So yeah, the tides turned there. I wasn't upset about it. It was a good move, and I respect it. So, So all that to say, I had a good time. Smash Up for me in general has always been one of those games where like, yeah, I played it. I liked it. It's fine. Do I need to play it again? Not necessarily. And I don't want that to sound bad. I mean, it does sound bad. But it's a game where I understand why people enjoy it. It's fun. It has, and they're trying to keep it fresh with the different packs and things like that. I do like the theme of this one, the kind of Marvel world, and I like how that plays together. So this is one, like if I were going to keep any of them, I think I would actually keep this one because I also have the game digitally as well. And I feel like for me, it's a bit easier to play it that way. So maybe that's why I kind of gravitate toward that. But there are some people who are really into this and have the big box and all the packs. I respect that. I get it. So it is the same game. The one I'm talking about, Smash Up Marvel, same game, different theme. And that's the good thing about this game. You can put so many different themes in it, and I do like that variability. So I think that's a winner for this. I did not like the font styling on this card.
Oh, interesting.
I knew what they were trying to do. Like I was playing, I had a deck, the Hydra deck, for example, that were, they're baddies. And I think they tried to make the text make it look like more like, we're bad. But I found it a little hard on the eyes and maybe a little hard to read. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was just me, but the person I was also playing with was like, yeah, no, the font is a bit off-putting. So things like that have to be taken into consideration because there is a lot of text on a lot of these cards. And then adding the font that's hard to read, it's a lot. So I think maybe different font. I know it's not as exciting, but we want to be able to read it clearly on the cards. And I think someone had mentioned to me they found some of the fonts small, so maybe making that bigger. Then again, that might mean they have to make bigger cards, and nobody really wants bigger cards in this type of game. I don't know, just a thought. But overall, I enjoyed it. Smash Up, I find, if you're a hardcore fan, you will definitely want to get this. And there's room in the box, which leads me to believe that they will be, as the others, building more characters so that you can do more mixing and matching. So it's one of those games. I liked it for what it was. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's Smash Up, so if you're familiar with it, nothing different here, but the theme is fun. Something I also should mention, which is really important, I really like the representation in the game. Like seeing a variety of the different types of characters and the way that they were illustrated. It wasn't just pulled off of somewhere. Some of those games, they pull off the art from somewhere already existed and then pop it in the game. No, it looks like it was done specifically for the game, and I really like the representation. So that is an important point, so I did not want to miss that.
I love to hear it.
So there you go. So Smash Up Marvel.
Man, we are all over the place with the games that we are talking about today, which I feel like our last episode was kind of like this too.
Yeah.
But what can you do? There's so many fun games out there. A mishmash indeed. Mm-hmm. So switching gears in our mishmash, Carnegie. This is designed by Xavier Georges, who you may know as the designer of Trois or Gingopolis. So hello, design cred. The art is by Ian O'Toole. Woo-hoo. Hello, art cred. And it's published by Quined Games. This was on Kickstarter for €65. I believe it's going to retail for a higher price than that, but that's what we got to go on.
But wait,
right now.
it's you can still go and get it on pre-order, and the only reason I know this is because I'm on the site right now as Suzanne's about to talk about it. Okay, sorry, continue.
We may have chit-chatted about it a little bit. I almost waited to talk about the game until I could play it with you, Mandy, but I just couldn't.
No, I'm here for it. Please, go ahead.
Now, Carnegie is going to be a little bit of a heavier game. This is going to play in a couple of hours. It's going to take you a couple hours to play it. And it's so worth it.
Spoiler!
There's some action selection here. When you pull it out, you're going to get a personal player board that's got, it looks like a building with different rooms in it. And then you've got a big map board that looks like a map of the United States. And it almost looks like a Ticket to Ride board or a train game board with cities marked on it and lines connecting different cities. There's a little section where you've got these tiles with different regions marked on it that's actually going to be your action board, and then there's extra tiles and all this other stuff going on. There's going to be meeples in your color because there's some kind of worker placement. Yeah, I wouldn't actually, it's not the right term because anyway, we'll get into that separately. And so what's going to happen is that you get this action board, and there's 4 different actions you can take, like resource and development or human resources, that kind of thing, 4 of them. When you take that action is going to determine which region pays out income potentially, or perhaps it will activate the ability to donate. We'll talk about that in a second. And then after you get your income, what that action does is it determines which rooms in your building that you've managed to get will activate. So if I take a research and development action, all of the rooms in my building that are research and development marked will activate and I can get the benefits of them. What you're going to be doing is trying to get more rooms into your building. You're going to be working to get quote unquote projects onto the map that are just little discs that represent your player color, and to make donations, because what they're saying is that Carnegie's life mission was really marked by his generosity to charitable institutions. So making donations throughout the game is a really important element of the game. Then you go through 20 rounds of take an action, potentially get income, make donations, and then activate your buildings. And the person who manages to accumulate the most points at the end of the game wins. Your points are primarily going to come from connecting big cities with projects on the map. So you can trace from San Francisco to Chicago in a continuous line with your little projects. Great, you're going to get some points. And through those donations, because there's 4 areas of donation up top, and all of those are end game scoring things. So maybe there's a spot that just gives you 7 points at the end of the game. But then there's going to be a spot that gives you points for every research and development room that you've managed to add to your board. There's going to be a space that's going to give you points for every city in the West that you've managed to get. There's a lot going on. It's definitely got a number of other mechanisms that I really haven't delved into. You're managing also advancement on this transportation track in every region that will give you benefits and increase your endgame score. There are these gears related to your actions that will increase your income and potentially give you points. And then there's all this worker management too, because what you're going to do is you're going to get these little meeples in the different rooms on your building. And then the strength of the actions or the options that you have will depend on how many meeples are in the room. And then every once in a while you want to send those meeples out onto the board, because getting meeples out onto the map in the different regions is what will determine if you could get income when it's activated there. Ooh! So much going on. Once you get into it, though, it really makes a lot of sense. I love this game. Holy cow. This one just hit it out of the park for me. I love how these systems work. I love the choices that you make. And I think one of the absolute important elements I want to call out is that action board that I talked about, where you take an action and you get income. It's variable. And I think there's a big discussion about replayability. And I love the discourse that's happening within Board Game Geek and beyond around this. But one of the things is that the action board is comprised of separate strips of cardboard that you mix around and then lay out. And they have the regions printed on them that will activate for income. It is so cool how that action board setup impacts how you want to approach the game. Because if you see it, if you're looking at this board and you're like, okay, the East is going to actually activate a ton at the beginning of the game. I got a plan for that. But then the West is going to activate at the end of the game. I got a plan for that. Or I was in a game where all the donation spots ended up happening boom, 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 right after each other. And that, because you don't have enough money to pay for the donations right away, you got to think, okay, well, I got to rush that element. That clever little thing of just making the action track variable has a huge impact on how the games play out, and it creates a twist to the game puzzle that I find absolutely magical. The artwork is gorgeous. I assume Ian was also in charge of the graphic design because he's the only name credited. You can see that a gamer, right? When Ian does a board, Ian knows games, so the game flow on the board makes sense in a really great way, and I love that this complex game felt pretty smooth to play once you understood the iconography. Mandy, you're going to love it. You are going to love this game. I love this game. Carnegie, if you want a slightly heavier game with a lot of moving pieces, this is definitely worth checking out.
Well, Thundering Moses. I had this on my Kickstarter list that was marked. And then I said, well, I don't know. I'm spending a lot of money. Is this going to be like everything I have already? And then I just said, no, I won't back it. And then here you are going through it. And I'm like, oh, check. Yeah, it does this. Check. Oh, absolutely. So now guess what? Now, as I said before, I'm back on the page getting ready to pre-order it. So yes, it does sound like a game that's right up my alley. Mm-hmm. Well, I've been wanting to sing this song so much.
Oh boy, bring it, girl.
You blinded me with science. And then you're like, what blinded you with science? Genotype, a Mendelian genetics game. Huh?
I don't know if that quite has the rhythm to it of the song.
I'm going to make it work, so...
Yes, you will.
That's going to have to happen. So there you go. It'll be stuck in your mind. So if you haven't figured it out already, that is the next game, or my last game that I'm going to talk about today that I played. And this one I did play solo. For those of you who maybe are jumping into this episode for the first time, I am not a solo game player, and I know there are people out there going, but Mandy, you've been playing games solo. Yes, I've been streaming games solo because of the current situation. I said, hey, let's give it a whirl. So I'm providing the perspective of the non-solo gamer playing solo games. Yeah, I know, that is a big oxymoron, but here we are. So, Genotype, a Mendelian genetics game, I played solo. It's designed by John Caveyu, Paul Solomon, and Ian Zhang. Art is by Tomas Bogusz and Amelia Salas, and it's published by Genius Games. So that might sound
I love
familiar.
Genius Games.
Yeah, they do some, Genius games that are educational in theme, which is nice. It plays 1 to 5 players in about 45 to 90 minutes, and it retails for about $50. It's a kind of drafting, dice rolling, set collection. So those are a few elements you will see in the game. So if you haven't figured it out already, the game is going to be talking about, and specifically the relationship between genotype and phenotype and the nature of genetic inheritance. And this is what you're going to see a lot of in this game. So during the game, we're going to be looking at specifically pea plants. So we're trying to get different pea plant cards, and which are going to show the phenotype traits that you hope they produce and collect in order to score points. So that's like the main thing you're trying to do. So because I played the solo game, I also had to have a separate set of cards for my solo player, which was going to help with their actions. And on their turn, I would actually have to draw 2 cards. And this is where it gets tricky because the cards have a lot of things on them. And depending on what phase you're using the cards in will depend on what part of the card you're using to do that action. And if they're unable to do an action, then we draw a new card until they're able to do that action. So it's hard to explain over, just voice. You'd have to see it, but that gives you the idea of what I had to do with the solo. And then I just had to leave some place for them to get plots where they could plant their pea plants as well. So that's the main thing with the solo. So what we're trying to do in the game you have different phases, and I think it takes place over 6 rounds. Don't quote me, 5 or 6 rounds. And what you're going to do in each round is you're going to go back and forth, and you have these little, I can't say this word, trowel?
Yes, it worked perfectly. Good job.
Oh, I don't know why I have such a hard time with that word. Oh my goodness. So you have a trowel, and that's what you're using as your action pieces. And you start with a few of those, and you have opportunities in the game to get more. So you're going to take turn placing those on the board. One side of the board has the dice are kind of off to the side. We're not doing those yet, but that allows you to place in that area to potentially get a coin and change the layout of the Punnett squares. School time, everybody. The teacher here asking, do we all know what a Punnett square is? Suzanne, do you remember Punnett squares?
I don't think I've ever heard this word before in my life, so I'm going to say no.
Okay, it's also been a minute for me too, okay? But I did really enjoy biology and, recessive and dominant traits. And, you had the kind of chart where, depending on where the traits were sitting, you would have those, the recessive, dominant, that sort of thing.
Got
I'm getting
it.
really complicated here, but it's those kind of squares you'll remember from biology. And what you're trying to do is you're going to have some dice that you're going to roll. And depending what's rolled will depend on the type of genes that you're going to get. And you're looking for certain ones to complete your P cards because your P cards will have these letters on them and you're trying to get the correct die to complete it. So that's one side of the board that you can place. There's also a place where you can get scoring for getting certain types of traits at the end of the game. Then there's another side of the board where you can get more pea plants, you can get equipment to help you out, so, kind of more powers, assistance, which will also give you some abilities, and these are some other things that you can do in the game. So you go back and forth doing that, then you do another phase, we're going to roll the dice, draft some of the dice, and complete any actions that you didn't do in the first phase of the game, so like gardening and picking up cards and things like that. Then you have a phase where you try to get those assistants, because you can't just get those in the game, potentially getting more plots, more places to place your dice, and this is based on a little area where you have to buy those on your turn. As a solo player, they can only do it once, but you can buy multiple. And you keep doing that. That's literally the game until the end of the rounds, and then whoever has the most points at the end of the game based on your pea plants, because they all have scoring amounts on them, wins the game. So I'm giving you a very quick overview of that. There's a little bit more, but you get the basic idea, okay? So I like the theme. The art in this game, very nice. It suits the game. So if you think of science and maybe I don't want to say old-timey science, but back in the day science, when, people wore those small round glasses and, they had a look. I know you know what I'm talking about, but I liked the aesthetic of the game because it matched the time of the kind of the science that they're discussing. So it's very simple, but nicely done. I really appreciated that. I liked the theme of the game. It's different, right? You don't see a lot of games about, talking about Punnett squares and genotypes and phenotypes. It's sciencey, but it didn't come across as totally educational. They have a separate book in the game that you could read if you wanted to get more background on this type of thing, or you could just play it for what it was and just read the rule book. So I did enjoy that they did that. I did not love the solo play. Now, take this with a grain of salt. I don't generally play solo games, but as someone who's not that type of player, I didn't enjoy it. And I did stream this game, and it's funny. I had someone in the stream who's like, Mandy, I like watching games because you do it from, hey, if I was learning a game for the first or second time, I'm just kind of muddling through, figuring it out. So yeah, you make a few mistakes and figure it out. I found the solo part was a lot of okay, you have to remember to do this. And then they have an extra phase that you have to remember to do, or they are limited on how many things they can hold, which is slightly different than you, or you have to action certain plants, like covering the plants in a certain way from the top. And some of the icons were not super clear. I had to keep referring to the book to be okay, sorry, what does that mean again? Oh, what's the next phase again? And they have these little cards that kind of outline it, but for details and making sure you don't miss it, it's in the rule book. That's a bit tedious for me. That's not for me particularly. I found that anytime I have to kind of keep referring to the book and it's not clear, or there's a lot of other little phases I have to do, that's not something I particularly enjoy. Someone who does play solo games may be totally okay with that. It just wasn't for me. So solo game, wasn't sold on it. I think I would prefer this game playing with a group and having that interaction, because they can take spaces where you now can't take them. And how is that going to play out? So I'd really like to have that interaction. And I personally think this game would play better with more people. That's just my opinion. So overall, I liked it. I can't say I loved it because I haven't played it with people. So maybe we can revisit this once I've had a chance to play it with more players. But overall, I think I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm a science. I love biology. So this to me was very interesting. And I think people should give it a try. I think it was on Kickstarter, if I'm not mistaken. So
usually, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, people might be just getting their copies now. I think it comes out on the 24th, which is, we're past that. So it's out already. So there you go. So that is Genotype, a Mendelian genetics game.
Very cool. It's funny because my kids are kind of in that science phase right now in class, talking about traits, and my 12-year-old's been doing that grid and stuff like that. So I might have to take a closer look at this just from a timeliness of the lesson. And
for those who are in science, don't judge me on my lack of using scientific terms. It's been a while, so I apologize.
And to wrap up games played, I'm going to be telling you about a game called Yakatabune. This is designed by Masaki Suga, who is a designer that I like to pay attention to because I find their works, if nothing else, to always be interesting. You may know them from Postali or Airship City. And this is really the driving force behind Analog Lunchbox, which is a great publisher out of Japan. This happens to be published by an offshoot brand called Polar Pond Games. The art is by Saori Shibata, and this is a 2-player only game that I imported from Japan. So up front, availability, I apologize. It may be a little more challenging to get for some folks if it sounds interesting to you. Yakatabune, when you read the rules, it's going to have a feel of a Lost Cities or a battle line because you set up these boat cards down the center, and then you are going to be playing fireworks cards to your own side of a boat, and there's a little bit of lane battling and control for those boats that are in the center. So that's it. You have a hand of cards that represent fireworks, and they have different point values on them. They also have a special action on them. And you're going to be taking turns playing cards to the center, to your side of that center of boats. There are also, I forget what they're called, but program cards that have a display that shows, hey, you want to get cards into a certain arrangement on your side of the boat to get these points, to complete a program, to make card patterns out of the cards. But what happens is when you play a card, there's actually an action on the card that your opponent can take. And that allows cards to be switched around or repositioned, or even the boats can be repositioned because the boats come in different colors, and the color of the boat combined with your action determines what can be impacted by that action. And the boats also have a number or a limit on them. So once the fireworks cards on both sides collectively of that boat reach a certain number, then whoever has the majority of fireworks points can put their token on it and get those points, essentially, applause tokens that lets them get those points. The game ends when all of the applause tokens are out or when the deck runs out of cards, and whoever has the most points wins. Mechanically, it's going to have some elements reminiscent of a battle line for sure. I find this game to be much more challenging and, in a way, a little more, I'm going to use the word obtuse here. It's just a little more complex. There's so much back and forth and tug of war with those actions. It's not a straightforward game. It's not a super complex game, but there are some intricacies, and you need to play it a few times for it to really click, because I'll tell you, those pattern cards feel impossible to get sometimes. And then the cards are moving around, and then you're like looking at the boat threshold and the value of your cards, and then the pattern you're trying to fulfill says you have to have 3 different values in a row, but then if you play this card, it's going to flip this boat. Oh my gosh, there's just, for such a small card game, there's ends up being a lot on your turn that you're trying to take into account. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for something like, oh, I love Battleline and I want to check out another game, fair warning, this one is more complex. But if you're like, ooh, I love Battleline, but I'm looking for something more complex and more intricate, hey-oh, here's Yakatabune, you might want to check it out. It feels, especially for like a North American design family point of view, right, it feels quirky comparatively. Which is one reason why I love seeking out games from different regions, because sometimes, you know, the context in which a game is produced just comes up with something you haven't seen before, something that feels different. And I think Yakatabune fits into that category. I think it's a lovely card game. It's got a lot of tension. It hurts a little bit as you're playing, as you're trying to figure out when to sacrifice and how to prioritize. And I think it's an interesting game for sure. So Yakatabune from Polar Pond Games.
So now, would you say overly complex? You know, some games are complex for the sake of saying, hey, we're complex, or enough to kind of burn the brain, but in a good way. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think it's overly complex. I think the best way I could put it is not intuitive.
Okay. Got it.
So it just takes a little bit of mental energy for it to click and for you to get into a game flow compared to some other 2-player games.
Understood. Okay, that could be interesting for sure for a lot of people.
Well, there you go, folks. Quite the mishmash. We're all over the place here, Mandy. And that's okay, because games are amazing. There's so many out there.
That's why people love listening to us. We just, a little bit of column A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the columns.
It's like a buffet. It's like going to a buffet for dinner. Oh my gosh,
goodness.
I love it.
I want buffet now.
Not for a little while longer, Mandy. You gotta wait. But, hey, if we're going to buffet, you want a dessert. Feels like we may not go to a buffet, but we could serve up some game pie.
Brought to you by the Op Games, also known as USAopoly. Today's featured game is Marvel Smash Up. Get ready to smash together two of your favorite things, Smash Up and Marvel. Marvel Smash Up is available now. The first officially licensed Smash Up game, the OP and AEG have partnered to bring the world of Marvel to the shuffle-building game of total awesomeness. Players work to build out their card hands and can mix and match different decks of heroes and villains, choosing from 8 different factions, 4 hero and 4 villain. These include the Ultimates, Hydra, the Avengers, Masters of Evil, S.H.I.E.L.D., the Kree, Spider-Verse, and the Sinister Six. What combo will you choose? It's for 2 to 4 players, ages 12 and up, and plays in about 60 minutes. Available now at the op.games or at your local game store today.
Order up!
And now, it's time to order up a slice of game pie.
Alrighty, folks, it's that time for another game pie. I love this segment. Now, we are talking about drafting games today. And when we were looking at lists and trying to pick games, we realized that a lot of people call certain things drafting, but Mandy and I felt, no, that's not how we look at drafting. To us, drafting is something where you're either passing or there's an open tableau and you're just pulling from it, but not where you are paying necessarily to get things. And so that's kind of where we drew our line. But then, I don't know, we started talking about all these we realized there's going to have to be a drafting game pie too, because
yes,
there's a lot of good drafting games out there, Mandy.
So good. So many. Oh my goodness.
And of course, drafting is where, let's use cards, for example. You have a hand of cards, you pick one, you keep it, and then you pass your hand to another player, where they will then pick a card and keep it. This is done with cards. Now we have dice drafting, we have shape drafting, all sorts of, you could draft anything in games nowadays.
So
These
true.
wild kids with all their object draftings. And I think our list kind of reflects that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
So, Mandy, why don't you serve up slice number 1?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I don't think this is going to be a big surprise to anybody because it's probably going to be on a lot of lists, but Azul is my number 1. And I'm talking about the original one. I mean, there are others, but this one in particular. I love the colors. Okay, don't laugh at me, but I love just having the bag or the satchel, as my friend likes to call it. And I even just like to feel the tiles in the bag. I don't know why. They just feel so substantial and nice. That's just one minor part of why I like this game. It can be a little ruthless at 2 players, which is not usually my jam, but I really enjoy it and really gets the brain going, gets me excited to play it. So Azul is my first slice of pie. So good.
Excellent choice. Yeah, I've played some pretty nasty deny draft games of Azul for sure.
And 2-player is brutal. Like, it's rough.
I love it. First slice up for me, Valley of the Kings. This is a ancient Egypt themed drafting game where you've got a pyramid of cards that you're pulling from, and just such a clever element with where you can bury cards. You can entomb cards, and you need to entomb cards to score them, but you also need cards in your hand to gather new cards and to optimize your card engine. And so that tension of how long do you keep a card in your hand is really, really fun and sets Valley of the Kings a notch up in the drafting card game world. And that's why it's my first slice of drafting pie.
Oh, this game's so good. And I have the deluxe version. Oh, it's fantastic. So
I'm envious. I need to get that edition for sure.
amazing. All right, next up on my list is It's a Wonderful World. And I haven't played the expansions yet. I'm excited to try this. And yes, I'll be trying them solo. But this is definitely a drafting game, in my opinion. I mean, you're throwing decks around, everyone's picking their cards, and then trying to build up I call it an empire. It's not really an empire, but you're trying to build up something nice that you can create to get a lot of cards to get points at the end of the game. I am actually not bad at this game, and I liked it instantly when I tried it. It's pretty straightforward, but I like the fact that you have different ways to level it up a bit to make it more difficult. It's a wonderful world. Well, it's a wonderful game.
Oh, dear. Next slice for me, Capital Lux. I recently reviewed Capital Lux 2, the newer updated version with a little more variability included in it. And what I said then stands true now. Capital Lux, where you're drafting games and you're playing them either to the city, the shared tableau, or to your personal tableau to score, and balancing the special abilities of each suit of cards. It's a pretty straightforward game. It's really delightful. I love Capital Lux, and it's been around for a few years now, and it really stands up. I think they brought something fresh, and it holds up today. And the art is gorgeous.
Absolutely. Another great choice. Very nice. That would be on my list too, but, so many.
Beat ya.
I know. Good choice. Good choice. Well, this one should be no surprise to anyone that it's on my list, but Millennium Blades. Oh, do I ever love this game so much. And I feel like I just don't get to play it as often as I would like. However, it's on Tabletopia. So, Suzanne, guess what? We're going to be playing.
It's on Tabletopia?
Yes.
What the what? How would you play that digitally?
Yeah, the timed part would be a little, I think you'd have to extend. So people who don't know, there is a timed part where you're trying to get certain cards together in your hand and your deck and whatnot. So, sorry, not your deck, your hand. But I think we'd have to extend that because I think it's going to be harder in a virtual setting. But all that to say, I am super excited to see that it's on Tabletopia. So for those of you who have not played Millennium Blades, definitely something you can check out. It is one of those games where it's like a game in a game because you're trying to get packs of cards and,
Oh, it's so good.
It's amazing. I really enjoy it. And oddly enough, a lot of people think this would not be in my wheelhouse of games. Love it so much. So Millennium Blades, absolutely on my drafting list. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, Mandy, you and I are definitely playing, because I love Millennium Blades too. It's hard to get to the table. I'm in for that Tabletopia experience.
So excited.
Next up for me, one that might be on your list, a little better known one, Seven Wonders Duel. I love I guess, is it a Winston draft or a Winchester draft, where it's kind of an open tableau where you're drafting cards from and it reveals more. And you're trying to do set collection, whether you're focusing on military or getting all the little science icons. It really does harken back to the big game, Seven Wonders. But I'll tell you right now, I vastly prefer Seven Wonders Duel. I love this game. I think that you get different strategies going. I think there's deny drafting going. I think that you can pursue different avenues for victory, and you have to be flexible with the draft pyramids that come out. Love this game so much. A great example of a drafting game. Seven Wonders Duel.
I'm absolutely horrific at that game, but it is a very good
let's
game.
Play.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what game am I not horrific at?
Whatever, don't even.
But no, good choice. I think a lot of people really enjoy that one. So the last slice of pie, and what a way to end. So delicious. Patchwork is my selection here. So this is a game I had to put on the list because Mumsy, yes, my mom, she really likes playing this game. And the dogs also like being involved because we played on the floor and they like to eat the wooden piece that is in the game. So, it's a game for the entire family. But that's not the only reason I like it. It's really smart, building your quilt and picking those right tiles that are going to generate a nice income for you and making it fit, right? Because you don't want empty holes in your on your quilt that you're making. So Patchwork for me is a winner. My copy's looking a little threadbare, so I might have to get another one. So try it out if you haven't. Quite good.
I love that you picked Patchwork, because that is absolutely a drafting game.
Absolutely.
But in a slightly different form, and I think that's a great choice. And last one up for me, Tiber the Builder.
Ooh, nice.
This is an Alexander Pfister card game. Mandy, we had talked about, I don't know when it came up, but it came up with Port Royale, maybe?
Maybe,
Where just Alexander Pfister makes great card games.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tiber the Builder is one of them. the thing I love about Tiber the Builder, multi-use cards.
Yes.
So you've got a hand of cards that you're drafting, but there are different icons and things all the way around the card. And so you get this card and you're playing it to your tableau, but depending on where you play it and which icons you're choosing to show, that single card can contribute to any one of these different areas. So you're really thinking about multiple elements at a time and trying to balance and prioritize. Such a clever game. Really, in fact, it's been a while since I played it, Mandy, but just thinking about it makes me really, really, really want to play it again very, very soon.
Me too. Such a good choice.
Great game. Great drafting game. Tiber the Builder. All right. Well, there you go, folks. That is Mandy and my drafting game pie. Now, Mandy, in our show notes, we've got like another 20 drafting games that were all potentials, right?
Absolutely. Oh, I can't wait to do part 2.
I mean, I'm looking at these games like, oh, maybe I should have mentioned this one instead.
Right?
Oh, no. We'll revisit it in a little bit and maybe, I mean, why have just one pie when you could have 2?
Exactly.
So we've got another drafting pie coming up. But hey, as always, if you think of another topic that we should do a game pie about, send us an email, send us your suggestions. Mandy, I know that you've got some questions in your inbox that we need to get to. So coming up, we'll do a Q&A. Certainly, if you have any questions about games or the game world or whatever, you know how to get to us. You can reach me at Suzanne at Dicetower.com.
And you can reach me at Mandy, that's Mandy with an I, at Dicetower.com.
As always, it is a pleasure and privilege to be here podcasting and being part of your extended gaming family. We are so happy to be here and so grateful for you as part of our gaming family. Next episode, Tom and Eric will be back. Mandy, man, they committed and they are almost there.
Wow.
Games that start with Y.
That's a doozy. Oh my goodness.
I would imagine the last few shows have been.
Yeah.
A few lists have been a little extra challenging. But it's fun to discover how they fill it out.
Absolutely.
Until next time, I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Andy Hutchinson.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandy, and Eric with assistance from Roy Canaday and Rob Searing. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at podcast@dicetower.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, everyone, it's that time again for Two Truths and a Lie. Let me go ahead and reveal my answers from the last episode. Delicatessen is a type of apple, Beauty of Bath is a type of apple, and Einstein is a type of apple. If you said Einstein is a type of apple, you would be incorrect. It is not. We just made that one up, but it sounded pretty delicious, right?
I love this. Like, Delicatessen, I'm down with Beauty of Bath, amazing.
Right? Such great names for apples. What about you, Suzanne?
Last episode, I was in an Oreo mood. I said I like the new Lady Gaga Oreos. I like the Brookie-O Oreos. And I like the dark chocolate Oreos. The lie is that I like the Lady Gaga Oreos Oh my gosh, those things are so sweet. It almost killed me. But a friend, Jambalaya Plays, Jeremy Howard, loves them and showed me a photo, and he's like, this is my 4th pack this week or something. I was, wow.
Again, as a Canadian, I thought we had like 3 types of Oreos, maybe 2. I don't know. I'm obviously behind on the sweets department.
Clearly.
All right, new this episode, I'm feeling, sweets. You heard me smelling the bag of Jelly Bellies, so Lent is almost over. Here we go. I like kiwi Jelly Bellies. I like chocolate pudding Jelly Bellies. And I like juicy pear Jelly Bellies.
I like them all. And new for me this episode, I still own my original copy of Clue. I still own my original copy of Life. And I still own my original copy of Monopoly.
Ooh, tricky, tricky. Good luck, everyone.